So WrestleMania 37 has come and gone over the last 2 nights. I want to give you guys a lot of my thoughts because I really haven't talked about Mania. I didn't do a predictions video. I didn't separate my reviews into night 1, night 2 because I'm a bad YouTuber. But anyways, WrestleMania happened. The event almost got, well, the night 1 did get delayed. The event almost got canceled entirely due to lightning in the area, but we were greeted to the beautiful image of Samoa Joe wearing a rain poncho. So I think that was well worth it. It must have been God just, you know, coming back for revenge against Vince McMahon from that tag match back in the day. But all jokes aside, I'm so glad that WrestleMania actually did happen after waiting, what was it, a year, a month, and a day since we've had fans in a WWE arena. We were finally able to rejoice over WrestleMania. And I'm gonna make a bold statement to open this video. I think that was the best WrestleMania we've had since WrestleMania 31 in Santa Clara, California. And I think I'm saying that as a pretty unbiased opinion as someone who attended WrestleMania 32 in Dallas, WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans, and WrestleMania 35 in New York, New Jersey. I wasn't able to attend WrestleMania this year because I'm Canadian, you know, you couldn't allow people across the border, and I just kind of wouldn't want to go even if I could because there's a pandemic still going on. But anyways, you know, maybe next year I'll go back to Dallas. Now, that's not what this is about. We are here to talk about WrestleMania. Was it good? Was it bad? Instead of going through the show match by match or night by night, we're just gonna go over the good and the bad and my takeaways. So let's go ahead and get started. And you know what? We're gonna start off with the good. I like to be optimistic and positive. And we have to start off by talking about both main events. Let's go ahead and take a look at night 1. Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Just incredible matchup. This is the first time 2 black women are facing off in the main event of WrestleMania for a title match, and it was well worth it. This match delivered on all fronts. Bianca Belair was made to look like an absolute star. Her and Sasha Banks just at the top of their game. Sasha just can't do anything bad this year, can she? I mean, look at The Mandalorian, look at all of her other classic matches she's had over the last year. She's really become probably the biggest draw in the women's division, maybe aside from Charlotte Flair. But her and Bianca put on an absolute clinic. It was so great to see Bianca Belair win the title with the KOD, using the braid as a weapon. There was a lot of good offense on both women's parts. Bianca doing that amazing military press where she picked Sasha all the way up from the floor, walked her up the steps, and threw her into the ring. Of course, did get the win with the KOD, celebrated with Montez Ford. Just an absolutely amazing moment for Bianca Belair. The star-making moment for her, in my opinion. And then over on night 2, the main event, we had Roman Reigns versus Edge versus Daniel Bryan for the Universal Championship. Jey Uso and Paul Heyman, of course, were there. And this match, again, was just absolutely insane. I don't know which one I prefer right now. I kind of have to think about it a bit. I think both of them had their pros, both of them had their cons. They both deserved the main event slot, which is why this whole 2-night formula worked very, very well. But it was a very, very physical match. My prediction going into it was Edge. I thought he was going to win the Universal Championship, but I'm glad with the result, actually. The result, of course, was Roman Reigns retaining, managing to pin both guys at the same time, which kind of doesn't really work because he put Edge on top of Daniel Bryan, so Edge technically pinned Daniel Bryan before Roman pinned both of them. Is that going to come up on SmackDown this week? I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. But the match was so physical to every count. They were using a steel chair to apply the yes lock in Roman's mouth, which looked very brutal. We had a big announce table spot, a huge, just brutal DDT on Jey Uso onto the steel steps. Like, I honestly thought Jey was completely out cold and actually injured or something like that because that was so brutal. But the match was amazing. These 3 are just at the top of their game. 3 absolute mega stars. And Roman Reigns is just really becoming such a polished main eventer, which we'll get into later in my takeaways from the show. But I loved it. So entertaining. Absolutely deserved the main event slot on night 2. Elsewhere, on night 1, we had my boy, one of my favorite wrestlers, been one of my favorites for years, the Swiss Superman Cesaro, competing in his first ever singles match at WrestleMania against another one of my favorite wrestlers, Seth Rollins. And Cesaro got the bloody job done. Everyone was saying Rollins was gonna win. It was starting to convince me, but no, I was pulling for my boy Cesaro, and Cesaro pulled off the dub. Great showing for both guys. Cesaro just looked like an absolute star. They just push Cesaro, please, I'm begging you. He looked amazing, so physical. I think he swung Rollins like 23 times or something like that. But my favorite spot was definitely when Cesaro did an airplane spin and then just took his arms down and was spinning Rollins just on his shoulders, not even holding onto him or anything. It looked so cool. But it was such good storytelling, just an amazing matchup. I could watch Seth Rollins and Cesaro wrestle for hours, but I'm over the moon excited. I'm just so glad they gave Cesaro the big WrestleMania win, and I'm hoping it's leading to something else. For the Raw Women's Championship, we had Rhea Ripley versus Asuka. Rhea got her entrance theme played live, which I thought was kind of cool. It didn't sound the greatest. A lot of people really didn't like it, like what I saw on Twitter, but I thought it was okay, but I'm always a little bit biased. I'm a bit more lenient on those live entrances than most people seem to be. I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of cool. And Rhea Ripley did win the Raw Women's Championship from Asuka. She got her big win back when she should have beaten Charlotte Flair last year. Should be interesting because I guess Charlotte might be coming after her title now. But it was amazing. Rhea Ripley and Asuka put on a clinic. It was very good. The two of their styles meshed very well. And it was a nice fresh matchup, a matchup that we've never seen before in WWE. And I'm just very glad to see Rhea Ripley atop of the Raw Women's division. Very intrigued to see where they're going to go with her next. Kevin Owens taking on Sami Zayn. Two of my absolute favorite wrestlers, good old Canadian boys like myself, with, Logan was there. And this match wasn't as great, I think, as some of their other matches. Obviously, if you look at Ladder War, if you look at Battleground 2016, etc., these two have wrestled so many times, and I don't think this one was as good. I think it needed a little bit more time, and it was just kind of a different dynamic for Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Usually Kevin Owens is the bitter heel, where Zayn is the underdog babyface, and now Zayn's got this weird character that honestly really works for him, and Owens is being a great babyface. So it's kind of a different dynamic. I don't think it was one of their best matches, but it wasn't bad by any means. But even then, a bad Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens match is going to be better than a good match put on by most other wrestlers. But I really did enjoy this match, honestly. It just wasn't my favorite that the two of them have had. I think it could have been a little bit better if they had a bit more time, but anyways, that's beyond the point. It was a really good match. I really did enjoy it. But again, just not their best match ever. I enjoyed it. I'm not going on this tangent any longer. US Championship match between Matt Riddle and Sheamus was very physical. Really enjoyed that one. Sheamus just hitting one of the best bro kicks ever, kicking Riddle out of midair whenever he was doing like a backflip into a moonsault or something like that. Very shades of Adam Cole and Ricochet a few years ago at NXT TakeOver, but it looked so good. These guys absolutely destroyed each other. Very physical matchup, probably between this one and Lashley McIntyre, which we'll get to for being like the most hard-hitting one of the weekend. And Sheamus is honestly on a really good run right now. I think myself and a lot of people kind of hated on him for the last couple of years. Sheamus is on a really good run right now, and I'm very excited to see him as United States champion. Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. This match obviously was delayed a little bit by the rain delay to kick off the first night, but these two certainly delivered. I'm glad that they kicked off the show because the first live entrance that we got to see with fans back was Drew McIntyre, the man who was supposed to close out last year's WrestleMania by winning the WWE Championship. So I think that fit really well. We have Bobby Lashley, who's on the top of the world right now as the WWE Champion in the Hurt Business. And I was really torn on this one because I could see reasons for both guys getting the win. Lashley's only been champion for a couple months. There's obviously bigger plans there with him. Everyone wants to see the Lesnar match, maybe at SummerSlam. Whereas McIntyre, he was supposed to get his moment last year, and it would kind of make sense that they give it to him this year in front of a crowd. But, I am glad that Bobby Lashley won. I think he's the right guy to hold the WWE title right now. It's a very brutal match. McIntyre was just trying to hit the Claymore for the most part and avoid the Hurt Lock, which of course he inevitably got trapped in, and tried to fight out of it for honestly quite a good couple of minutes, but it wasn't enough, and he did end up passing out instead of tapping out, so it doesn't really hurt McIntyre at all. But I am very glad that Bobby Lashley did pick up the win and retain the WWE Championship. Another great spot was Bad Bunny. I never thought I'd be saying that, but Bad Bunny did so well. He looks so happy to be there. It's obvious he's been a wrestling fan for life. The man was training hard at the Performance Center. I saw all sorts of stuff on social media throughout the week, and he delivered. This was probably, dare I say, the best celebrity match we've ever seen. I don't know if any others are immediately popping to mind, but it definitely one of. He definitely raised the bar just absolutely for any celebrities down the line who get involved with wrestling. He hit a freaking Canadian destroyer. He was doing suplexes, jumping off the ropes. Bad Bunny just looked amazing. Damian Priest is going to be a big star. Sucks for Miz and Morrison, kind of the spot that they were in on this show, but I'm sure they're okay with it. But it's just kind of Miz falling down the card. If you think about it, just a couple months ago, he was the WWE champion. But anyways, I did enjoy the match, and I think Bad Bunny was just absolutely amazing. Apollo Crews and Big E tore it down for the Intercontinental Championship. The Nigerian drum fight, which really didn't have the drums involved too much. It seems like they used every other weapon that was at ringside, but I certainly enjoyed it. I've been a big fan of both these guys for years and years, and it's great to see Apollo Crews finally having a character and, actually getting to talk instead of just, being, oh, I'm happy to be here, Apollo Crews. But Big E and Apollo had an amazing match. Really enjoyed that one. They had Dabba-Kato come out and help him. I guess he's going to be his new muscle, but Apollo Crews did win the Intercontinental Championship. I was a little torn on this one. I thought Big E was going to retain, but at the same time, I can see why they're putting the title on Cruz. I think Big E's going to move up the card, maybe into the main event title contention, and on to bigger and better things. So I'm very excited for that from Big E. I think he certainly deserves it. And I'm very intrigued to see what Apollo Crews is going to do with the Intercontinental Championship as this character. And the final part of the good here, AJ Styles and Omos taking on the New Day. This match, once Omos came in and just started obliterating Xavier and Kofi, he looked like an absolute star. And I'm very excited to see what they are going to do with Omos in the future. I think he could be the next big man for WWE. He looked like an absolute powerhouse, just throwing ragdoll Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston around the ring. And I do wonder, is he gonna turn on AJ at some point, and are they gonna have a match at like SummerSlam? But it's gonna be interesting to see what this tag team championship run does entail for Omos and AJ Styles. The first bad part was just the overall build for WrestleMania. Like, I was not excited for this pay-per-view as much as it delivered for. Like, especially I think Bianca and Sasha Banks. Those two, the build for them wasn't the greatest. Having them, contend for the women's tag titles and whatnot, it could have been done a lot better. I think the majority of the SmackDown matches were, however, built up pretty well. Definitely the main event with Roman, Edge, and Daniel Bryan, that was built up perfectly. Apollo Crews and Big E was built up pretty decently. Fiend and Orton had been building for a while, but it was kind of hokey. Then again, I'm not a big fan of the Fiend. But there's just a lot of matches that I think could have used more of a build, in my opinion. Some of them were pretty decent, but I feel like the hype around this Mania, it didn't really feel like it was WrestleMania happening until, actually watching the show and seeing it deliver. But then again, I would rather have that than have an amazing build and then a show just that doesn't deliver whatsoever. The second thing that I really didn't enjoy was Randy Orton versus The Fiend. I've never been a big fan of The Fiend character. I've never really understood it. But this was just really hokey. They had Alexa Bliss distract The Fiend with like goo coming out of her face, and then Randy Orton just hit one RKO for the win. I don't understand what was supposed to happen. I think a lot of people, myself included, are kind of theorizing that it wasn't Bray Wyatt. Maybe it was like Bo Dallas or something. That fell really flat, especially with Bray Wyatt taking like so many finishers and not being able to stay down. He just falls to one RKO. So there must be something going on here for storytelling, but the match was way too quick, and it wasn't very good. The women's tag team titles, we had the Turmoil match on night one, which was won by Natalya and Tamina, and then they went on to night two to face Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, and they lost. And just the entire situation with the women's tag titles, it's just, these titles feel so unimportant right now. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler are not like a proper tag team. Shayna Baszler should be fighting for the Raw Women's Championship. Nia Jax, I'm not a big fan of, but that's beyond the point. Why Natalya and Tamina won this Turmoil match really boggled me as well, because these two have been a team for what, a couple weeks, maybe a month? Whereas a team, like the Riot Squad, who have been together since day one, I think could be used to revitalize the tag titles, because the tag titles at the very best have been used as a side prop for the Raw and SmackDown Women's Champions. I don't think the WWE has the room for these titles right now. There's not enough women's tag teams built up to contend for it. And that's why it just kind of fell flat for me. I didn't really enjoy either of the matches, but I don't know. I think WWE, I don't know if they should scrap the titles, but they certainly need to change something with it. And I don't know why they brought in tag titles for the women in NXT now, because it's just another title for the women's tag teams. And it's so confusing now. I think they just should have brought the women's tag titles down to NXT, left them there, and then just gotten rid of the NXT ones or not introduced them in the first place. But I would really like to see the women's tag titles get fixed or just outright gotten rid of, along with, like the 24/7 championship, which I'm glad wasn't featured at WrestleMania. And finally, the last kind of bad point. This one was kind of on the edge for good and bad for me. I think the build and the overall storyline was just awful, but the match wasn't too bad, and that is Shane McMahon versus Braun Strowman. Steel cage match. It was okay. There was a really cool Shane bump with him getting thrown off the cage. Other than that, I can't really remember too much from this matchup. I know Braun won, but the whole feud was just kind of dumb with Shane calling Braun stupid and whatnot. I think they could have done something a lot better here, but the match itself was alright. The build was god-awful, and I don't know, just maybe the placement on the card for it. I wasn't that invested in the match when I was watching it. It just kind of fell flat with me, at least. I didn't enjoy it that much, but it wasn't like awful, but I'm kind of categorizing it as bad, if you know what I mean. This is my video, leave me alone. So my biggest takeaways from this Mania, I think it is the best WrestleMania we've had since Mania 31. I think when we look back on this Mania, we are going to remember it for building up the next generation of wrestlers. If you look at just a lot of the winners from this night, maybe aside from Orton and Sheamus, it's a lot of like younger guys, a lot of guys that are being built up and groomed for the future of the industry. Roman Reigns has become a polished main eventer. I don't care what you say, he was money. He is money. He's in the best run of his life. He should still be the Universal Champion, and I'm glad that he retained. Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley future the women's division right there. Almost going to be the next big man in WWE. Cesaro getting the big dub. That one, Just so happy Cesaro won, guys. But anyways, those are my overall thoughts on WrestleMania. I thought overall, again, it was a really good show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hopefully I can go next year. It was kind of sad, but you know, it was still fun to kick back, open up some good old Canadian whiskey and watch some wrestling. But anyways, that's gonna do it. These are my thoughts on WrestleMania 37, my honest review. I think this pay-per-view was really, really good. If you haven't watched it yet, highly recommend. I think overall, night 1 was a little bit stronger than night 2, but I think they're both easily worth the watch. But anyways, those are my thoughts. Feel free to let me know any thoughts you had about WrestleMania. If you disagree or agree with any of my points, feel free to drop it down in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoy, subscribe to see more, and I will see you guys very soon with another video. Thank you. Everybody say, now it's gone away. Rocks now, damn, nothing